Emma sat at the small table near the window, her hands trembling slightly as she counted the crumpled bills one more time. $4. That was all she had left after paying for the bus ride to this upscale restaurant in the heart of the city. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus, the guy she was supposed to meet. Running late. Be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Emma took a deep breath and looked around the elegant dining room. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over white tablecloths and polished silverware. This was so far from her world. She smoothed down her navy sweater, the nicest thing she owned, and wished she had something better to wear. The waiter approached with a practiced smile. "Good evening, miss. May I start you with something to drink?" Emma's throat felt dry. "Just water, please. I'm waiting for someone." At the next table, a young man in an expensive suit sat alone, barely touching his meal. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and even from where Emma sat, she could see the designer watch on his wrist. He glanced up from his phone, and for just a moment, their eyes met. Emma looked away quickly, feeling suddenly very small. The young man was Daniel Crawford, though Emma had no way of knowing that name belonged to one of the wealthiest families in the state. Daniel had grown up with everything money could buy, but lately, none of it seemed to matter much. His father had sent him to this restaurant to meet a business associate's daughter, another arranged introduction that would lead nowhere. But it had arrived early, and the daughter was late, and now he found himself watching the blonde girl at the next table instead. There was something about the way she held herself, a kind of quiet dignity mixed with obvious nervousness. She kept checking her phone, then looking toward the entrance. A blind date, Daniel guessed. He had been on enough of those himself. The waiter returned with Emma's water, and Daniel heard her whisper, "Thank you." Her voice was soft, polite. When the waiter asked if she would like to order an appetizer while she waited, she shook her head quickly. "No, thank you. I'll wait." Daniel saw the way her fingers tightened around her phone. He knew that look. She was worried about money. Another 15 minutes passed. Emma checked her phone again. Marcus had sent another message. "Traffic is terrible. Might be another 30 minutes. You should order something." Emma bit her lip. She looked at the menu, and Daniel saw her eyes widen slightly at the prices. The cheapest appetizer was $18. She closed the menu and took a sip of water. Daniel found himself unable to look away. There was something deeply familiar about her situation, though his own life had been so different. But he remembered his mother's stories, how she had grown up poor, how she had worked her way through college while raising him alone before she met his stepfather. She had told him those stories to keep him grounded, to help him remember that money was not the measure of a person's worth. The waiter came by Emma's table again. "Miss," your companion called. "He asked me to tell you he will be quite delayed. Perhaps you would like to order dinner?" Emma's face flushed. I think I'll just wait a little longer." The waiter nodded politely, but Daniel saw the slight change in his expression. He had worked in his father's businesses long enough to recognize that look. The waiter had made a judgment. Daniel made a decision. He stood up and walked over to Emma's table. She looked up, startled, her blue eyes wide. "Excuse me," Daniel said gently. "I don't mean to intrude, but I couldn't help overhearing. Your date is running late, and I'm here alone as well. My dinner companion canceled at the last minute. Would you mind if I joined you? I hate eating alone." Emma stared at him, clearly unsure how to respond. That's very kind, but I don't think." "Please," Daniel said, his voice warm. "It would actually be doing me a favor. This place feels awfully formal when you're by yourself." There was something in his eyes, a kindness that made Emma pause. She nodded slowly. "All right, if you're sure." Daniel sat down across from her and extended his hand. "I'm Daniel." "Emma," she said, shaking his hand. Her grip was firm despite her nervousness. "It's nice to meet you, Emma. Have you ordered yet?" "No, I was waiting." Daniel caught the waiter's attention. "We like to start with a soup of the day for both of us. Please. And the roasted chicken special. Does that sound good to you, Emma?" Emma opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. She nodded. "That sounds wonderful." When the waiter left, Daniel leaned back in his chair. So, a blind date that's running late. That's rough. Emma managed a small smile. Is it that obvious? I've been there, Daniel admitted. More times than I'd like to count. The waiting is the worst part. This is actually my first blind date, Emma confessed. My friend Rachel set it up. She said Marcus was a nice guy, that we get along. But now I'm starting to wonder if he's going to show up at all. His loss, Daniel said simply. Tell me about yourself, Emma. What do you do? Emma hesitated. She thought about lying, about making herself sound more impressive. But something about Daniel's open expression made her want to be honest. I work at a dry cleaning shop, she said, and I go to community college at night. I'm studying accounting. That's impressive, Daniel said, and he meant it. Working and going to school at the same time takes real dedication. My mom always said education was important, Emma said softly. She was a housekeeper most of her life. She worked for wealthy families, cleaning their homes. She never got the chance to go to college herself, but she made sure I understood how important it was. Daniel asked gently. She passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. Emma's voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the pain underneath. She fought so hard. I was by her side until the end. I'm so sorry, Daniel said, and the compassion in his voice was real. She sounds like she was an incredible woman. She was, Emma said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She taught me that kindness costs nothing and that your circumstances don't define your worth. She used to say that some of the wealthiest people she met had the poorest hearts, and some of the poorest people had the richest souls. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Your mother was a wise woman. The soup arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Daniel asked, "What made you agree to this blind date?" Emma laughed softly. Honestly, Rachel wore me down. She said I needed to get out more, that I spend too much time working and studying. She said I was 23 years old, and I needed to live a little. And what do you think? I think she might be right, Emma admitted. I've been so focused on surviving, on making something of myself, that I forgot about actually living. But then I come to a place like this, and I remember why I don't do this sort of thing. Why is that? Emma gestured around the elegant restaurant. This isn't my world. I don't belong in places like this. Daniel set down his spoon and looked at her seriously. Emma, can I tell you something? I've spent my whole life in places like this, and I've met hundreds of people who belong here. Most of them are boring, self-absorbed, or cruel. You've been more genuine in 10 minutes than most people I know are in a lifetime. Emma felt her cheeks warm. You don't have to say that. I'm not just saying it, Daniel insisted. I mean it. Their main course arrived, and Emma tried not to think about how much the meal must cost. She focused instead on the conversation, which flowed more easily than she ever expected. Daniel told her about his own life, though he was careful to downplay the wealth aspect. He talked about the pressure of family expectations, about feeling like he was living someone else's life. My stepfather has my whole future mapped out, he said. Business school, then joining the family company, then marrying someone appropriate. Everything is planned. Sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions. At least you have options, Emma said, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry that sounded bitter. No, Daniel said. You're right. I'm lucky in a lot of ways. But sometimes having everything means nothing feels real. Does that make sense? Emma thought about it. I think so. My mom used to clean for a family with 3 kids. They had everything you could imagine. Toys, clothes, fancy vacations. But they were miserable. The parents were always working, always stressed. The kids barely saw them. My mom said she felt sorry for them, even though they had so much more money than we did. Your mother sounds like she really understood people. She did, Emma said. She used to say that everyone is fighting their own battles, rich or poor. That we should always be kind because we never know what someone else is going through. Daniel found himself genuinely moved by this young woman. She had so little, had lost so much, but there was no bitterness in her, just grace and quiet strength. Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face fell. It's Marcus. He says something came up, and he can't make it tonight. He's very sorry. Daniel saw the hurt flash across her face before she composed herself. I'm sorry, Emma. She shrugged, trying to look unbothered. It's fine. I guess Rachel was wrong about him being a nice guy. His loss, Daniel repeated firmly. Any man who would stand you up is an idiot. Emma smiled despite herself. You're very kind, Daniel. Thank you for sitting with me. This would have been really embarrassing otherwise. I'm glad I did, Daniel said. This has been the most interesting evening I've had in a long time. They finished their meal, talking about everything and nothing. Emma told him about her dreams of becoming a CPA, of maybe opening her own practice someday to help small businesses. Daniel talked about his love of architecture, how he had always wanted to design buildings, but his family expected him to manage them instead. Why don't you? Emma asked. Pursue architecture, Daniel sighed. It's complicated. Family obligations, expectations. My stepfather built an empire. He expects me to help run it. But it's your life, Emma said simply. My mom used to say that at the end of your days, you have to live with your choices. No one else does. Make sure they're choices you can live with. Daniel looked at her thoughtfully. Your mother really did leave you with a lot of wisdom. She left me with everything that matters, Emma said softly. The waiter brought the check, placing it discreetly near Daniel's elbow. Daniel reached for his wallet without even looking at the total. Wait, Emma said, her voice small. I should pay for my half. Daniel shook his head. Absolutely not. This is my treat. But I invited myself to eat with you. Emma, Daniel said gently, I invited you to join me, remember? Please let me do this. Emma bit her lip, clearly uncomfortable. I can't let you pay for everything. Daniel saw the pride in her eyes, the same pride his mother had carried for years. He understood it, respected it. How about this, he said. You can buy me coffee sometime. Deal. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Deal. Daniel paid the bill, leaving a generous tip. As they stood to leave, Emma's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and frowned. What is it? Daniel asked. It's Rachel. She's asking how the date went. Emma's fingers hovered over the keyboard. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth, Daniel suggested. That Marcus was a no-show, but you had a nice evening anyway. Emma smiled and typed out a quick message. As they walked toward the entrance, she suddenly stopped. I just realized I don't even know your last name, she said, and I should give you my number for that coffee. Daniel pulled out his phone. Let's exchange numbers. They swapped phones and entered their information. When Emma handed his phone back, Daniel saw she had just entered Emma with no last name. Reed, she said, as if reading his thoughts. Emma Reed. Emma Reed, Daniel repeated. It's been a real pleasure, Emma Reed. They walked out into the cool evening air. The streetlights were just coming on, casting pools of warm light on the sidewalk. Where you headed? Daniel asked. Can I give you a ride? Emma shook her head. The bus stop is just around the corner. I'll be fine. Emma, it's late. Please let me drive you home. She looked up at him, and Daniel saw the internal struggle on her face. Pride versus practicality. Okay, she said finally. Thank you. Daniel led her to the parking garage, where his car was waiting. Emma tried not to react when she saw the sleek black sedan, clearly expensive. She climbed into the passenger seat, suddenly very aware of the difference in their worlds. As Daniel pulled out into traffic, Emma gave him directions to her neighborhood. She watched his face carefully, waiting for judgment when they entered the less affluent part of town, but his expression never changed. That's it, Emma said, pointing to a modest apartment building, the one with the blue door. Daniel pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. Thank you for tonight, Emma. I really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you for dinner, Emma said, and for rescuing me from what would have been a really awkward evening. It wasn't a rescue, Daniel said. It was just two people having dinner and good conversation. That's all. Emma opened the door, then paused. Daniel, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really come over to my table? You're You're obviously from a different world than I am. Why bother with someone like me? Daniel was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. My mother grew up poor. Really poor. She worked multiple jobs, raised me alone for years. When I was 10, she married my stepfather, and suddenly we had everything. But she never forgot where she came from. She taught me to see people, not their bank accounts. When I saw you sitting there, worried and alone, I saw someone who deserved kindness. That's all. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Your mother sounds wonderful. She is, Daniel said. I think she and your mom would have liked each other. Emma smiled. I think so, too. She got out of the car, then leaned back in. Don't forget about that coffee. I won't, Daniel promised. Emma walked to her building and turned away before going inside. Daniel waited until she was safely through the door before driving away, inside her small studio apartment. Emma leaned against the closed door and let out a long breath. Her phone buzzed with a call from Rachel. So, Rachel demanded. How is it? Rachel, Emma said slowly. Marcus never showed up. What? That jerk. I'm so sorry, Em. Are you okay? I'm fine, Emma said, and she realized she meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. Something really unexpected happened. She told Rachel about Daniel, about the dinner and the conversation. Rachel listened, occasionally interrupting with excited questions. He sounds amazing, Rachel said when Emma finished. Are you going to see him again? I don't know, Emma admitted. We exchanged numbers, but he's so far out of my league, Rachel. You should have seen where he parked his car, what he was wearing. Everything about him screamed money. So what? Rachel said, he clearly liked you, Em. Don't count yourself out before you even try. After they hung up, Emma got ready for bed, but sleep was elusive. She kept replaying the evening in her mind, remembering the warmth in Daniel's eyes, the way he had listened to her so intently. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel sat in his study, ignoring the stack of business reports his stepfather had left for him to review. Instead, he found himself thinking about Emma Reed. There had been something real about her, something genuine. She hadn't known who he was, hadn't been impressed by his money or his family name. She had just been herself, honest and kind and thoughtful. His phone rang. His mother. Hi, Mom, he answered. How was the dinner with Catherine? She asked. Did you two get along? Daniel had completely forgotten about Catherine, the business associate's daughter he was supposed to meet. She didn't show up. Or maybe I left before she got there. I ended up having dinner with someone else. Oh, his mother's interest was piqued. Who? Daniel told her about Emma, about their conversation, and her mother's wisdom. He heard his mother smile through the phone. She sounds lovely, she said. You should ask her out properly. I don't know, Mom. She's different from the people I usually meet. I don't want to overwhelm her. Daniel, his mother said gently, different is good. And from what you've told me, she sounds like exactly the kind of person you need in your life. Someone real. After they said goodnight, Daniel sat in the quiet of his study, turning his mother's words over in his mind. Then he picked up his phone and typed out a message to Emma. Thank you again for tonight. I'd really like to take you to that coffee you promised me. Are you free this Saturday? He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Emma's phone buzzed just as she was finally drifting off to sleep. She picked it up and read Daniel's message, her heart doing a small flip in her chest. She typed back, I like that. Saturday works. Daniel's response came quickly. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 10. Emma hesitated. The truth was, she was nervous about him seeing more of her neighborhood in daylight, seeing just how different their lives really were. But she had promised coffee, and she wasn't the kind of person to back out on a promise. See you then, she replied. That Saturday morning, Emma changed her outfit 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple sweater. She didn't have fancy clothes, and she wasn't going to pretend to be someone she wasn't. When Daniel pulled up at exactly 10 o'clock, she was waiting outside. He got out of the car and came around to open her door, and Emma noticed he was dressed casually too, in jeans and a button-down shirt. It made her feel a little less self-conscious. Good morning, he said, his smile warm. "Ready for that coffee?" "Ready," Emma confirmed. But instead of driving to the upscale part of town, Daniel headed in the opposite direction. Emma looked at him curiously. "There's a place I want to show you," he explained. "It's where my mom used to take me when I was a kid, before she married my stepfather. I haven't been back in years." They pulled up to a small diner on the edge of town. It was a kind of place with vinyl booths and a menu board behind the counter. Nothing fancy, but clean and welcoming. "Mom and I used to come here every Saturday morning," Daniel said as they walked in. "It was our tradition. She'd order the pancakes and I'd get the waffles, and we'd split them." An older woman behind the counter looked up and her eyes widened. "Danny? Danny Crawford? Is that really you?" Daniel's face broke into a genuine grin. "Hi, Mrs. Chun. It's been a long time." Mrs. Chun came around the counter and pulled him into a hug. "Too long. Your mother hasn't brought you around in years." "How is she?" "She's great," Daniel said. "Mrs. Chun, I'd like you to meet Emma." "Emma, this is Mrs. Chun. She makes the best pancakes in the state." Mrs. Chun beamed at Emma. "Any friend of Danny's is welcome here. You two sit anywhere you like." They slid into a booth by the window, and Mrs. Chun brought over 2 cups of coffee, without even asking. "So," Emma said, wrapping her hands around the warm mug, "you used to come here as a kid?" Daniel nodded. "Every Saturday morning from the time I was 5 until I was about 12. Then my mom married Richard, and suddenly we were eating at country clubs and fancy restaurants. I miss this place." "It's nice," Emma said, looking around. "It feels honest." "That's exactly the word," Daniel agreed. "Honest. That's what I liked about it. That's what I liked about our dinner the other night, too. It felt honest." They ordered the pancakes and waffles, splitting them just like Daniel used to do with his mother. As they ate, they talked more freely than they had at the restaurant, with none of the pressure or pretense. Emma told him about growing up with her mother, about how they had struggled but had always had each other. She talked about the families her mother worked for, the houses she had cleaned. One family my mom worked for, the Hawthorns. They were incredibly wealthy, Emma said. But Mrs. Hawthorne was kind. She always made sure my mom had lunch, and at Christmas, she would give her a generous bonus. My mom said she was one of the good ones. Daniel listened intently. What made her one of the good ones? She saw my mom as a person, not just a help, Emma explained. She asked about me, remembered details about our lives. Little things, but they mattered. Your mom kept you grounded, Daniel observed. Even though she was surrounded by wealth, she taught you what really mattered. She did. Emma agreed. She used to say that character is what you do when no one is watching. That kindness is its own reward. They finished their meal and Daniel insisted on paying, though Emma noticed the bill was less than $15 for both of them, including the coffee. As they got up to leave, Mrs. Chin stopped them. "Danny, you bring this young lady back any time," she said, winking at Emma. "And tell your mother I said hello." Outside, the morning sun was bright and warm. Daniel walked Emma back to the car, but before opening her door, he turned to face her. "Emma, I need to be honest with you about something." Emma felt her stomach drop. Here it comes, she thought. He's going to say this was nice, but they're too different. "I haven't been completely truthful about who I am," Daniel continued. "My full name is Daniel Crawford. My stepfather is Richard Crawford. He owns Crawford Properties." Emma's eyes widened. She knew that name. Everyone did. Crawford Properties was one of the largest real estate development companies in the state. "I didn't tell you before because I wanted you to know me as just Daniel, not as someone's son or someone's stepson. But it's not fair to keep it from you either." Emma was quiet, processing this information. "Is that why you came over to my table that night? Because you felt sorry for me?" "No," Daniel said firmly. "I came over because I saw someone who was kind and nervous and genuine, and I want to know more about you. The money thing, it's complicated for me. Most people, when they find out who my family is, they treat me differently. They either want something from me or they judge me. I didn't want that with you." Emma looked up at him, searching his face. She saw sincerity there and vulnerability. "I don't want anything from you," she said slowly. And I'm not going to judge you for your family's money. That would be pretty hypocritical of me, wouldn't it? Considering I was worried you'd judge me for not having any. Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. So we're okay. We're okay, Emma confirmed. But Daniel, you have to understand. I'm a girl who works at a dry cleaner's and goes to community college. You're Daniel Crawford. We live in completely different worlds. Maybe, Daniel said, or maybe we live in the same world, just different parts of it. And maybe that's okay. They spent the rest of the morning walking through a nearby park, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about the pressure to join the family business, about how he felt trapped by expectations. What would you do if you could do anything? Emma asked. I'd study architecture. Daniel said without hesitation. I design buildings that matter, that serve communities, not just luxury high-rises for the wealthy. Then why don't you? It's not that simple. Why not? Emma pressed. You have resources most people don't have. You could study architecture and still be involved in the family business. You could influence what gets built. Daniel stopped walking and looked at her. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is, Emma said. We complicate things, create obstacles that don't need to be there. What's the worst that could happen if you told your stepfather you wanted to study architecture? He'd be disappointed. He has plans for me. And what about your plans for you? Emma asked gently. You told me the other night that your stepfather has your whole life mapped out. But it's your life, Daniel, not his. Daniel was quiet, turning her words over in his mind. It was the same thing his mother had been telling him for months. But somehow, hearing it from Emma made it feel more real. What about you, he asked. What would you do if you could do anything? Emma smiled. Honestly, I'm doing it. I'm working and studying and building a life. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. And when I finish my degree and become a CPA, I'll have done it myself. No one can take that away from me. You're remarkable, Daniel said softly. Do you know that? Emma felt her cheeks flush. I'm just doing what needs to be done. No, Daniel insisted. You're doing more than that. You're living with purpose and integrity. That's not common, Emma. They continued walking, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Emma told him about her friend Rachel and her attempts at matchmaking. Daniel told her about his best friend from college who was now traveling the world, much to his wealthy parents' dismay. As the afternoon wore on, Daniel drove Emma home. When they pulled up to her building, neither of them seemed eager for the day to end. I had a really nice time today, Emma said. So did I, Daniel replied. Can I see you again? Emma hesitated. Daniel, I like you. I really do. But I need you to be sure about this. Because our lives are so different, and I don't want to be someone's charity case or temporary adventure. Daniel reached over and gently took her hand. Emma Reed, you are not a charity case. You're one of the most genuine, thoughtful people I've ever met, and I would very much like to spend more time with you, if you'll let me. Emma looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. Okay, she said softly. Let's see where this goes. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Emma fell into a comfortable rhythm. They would meet for coffee, for walks in the park, for dinners at small restaurants that felt more like Mrs. Chen's diner than that first fancy place. Daniel never made Emma feel less than because of her circumstances, and Emma never made Daniel feel guilty about his privilege. They just enjoyed being together, learning about each other. But reality had a way of intruding. One evening, Daniel picked Emma up for dinner, and she could immediately tell something was wrong. His jaw was tight, his movement stiff. What happened? She asked as soon as she got in the car. I told my stepfather I want to study architecture, Daniel said. It didn't go well. What did he say? Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He said I was being selfish, that I had responsibilities to the family. He said architecture was a hobby, not a career for someone in my position. I'm sorry, Emma said softly. The worst part is my mother didn't back me up, Daniel continued. She just sat there. I think she's afraid of disappointing him, even after all these years. Emma was quiet, letting him process his emotions. Finally, she said, What are you going to do? I don't know, Daniel admitted. Part of me wants to just do what he wants. Keep the peace. But another part of me knows you're right. It's my life. Daniel, I can't tell you what to do, Emma said carefully. But I can tell you that living someone else's dream will never make you happy. My mom used to say that the saddest people she knew were the ones who gave up on themselves. They drove in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Daniel pulled over to the side of the road and turned to face Emma. Come to dinner at my house, he said suddenly. Tomorrow night, I want you to meet my mother. Emma's eyes widened. Are you sure? I mean your stepfather. He'll be out of town, Daniel interrupted. It'll just be my mom and us. Please, Emma. I want her to meet you. Emma took a deep breath. Okay, yes, I'd like to meet her too. The next evening, as Daniel drove them to his family's estate, Emma tried not to let her nervousness show. But when they pulled up to the enormous house, with its manicured lawns and fountain in the circular driveway, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. It's just a house, Daniel said gently, seeing her expression. It's a mansion, Emma corrected. It's where I live, Daniel said. But it's not who I am. Remember that. Daniel's mother, Catherine, met them at the door. She was an elegant woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. You must be Emma, she said, extending her hand. I've heard so much about you. It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Crawford, Emma said. Please call me Catherine. She linked her arm through Emma's. Come in. I hope you're hungry. I made dinner myself. No caterers tonight. The meal was delicious and surprisingly casual. Catherine had set the table in a cozy breakfast nook rather than the formal dining room, and she served pot roast with vegetables, nothing fancy but made with obvious care. As they ate, Catherine asked Emma about her studies, her work, her life. But unlike the intrusive questions Emma had sometimes faced, these felt genuine, like Catherine really wanted to know. Daniel tells me your mother passed away, Catherine said gently. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, Emma said. She was an amazing woman. A housekeeper, actually. She worked hard her whole life. She raised an impressive daughter, Catherine said. That's its own kind of success. After dinner, Catherine invited Emma to walk with her in the garden while Daniel cleared the dishes. As they strolled through the beautifully landscaped yard, Catherine spoke quietly. I grew up poor, Emma. Did Daniel tell you that? He mentioned it, yes. I was a waitress when I met my first husband, Daniel's father. Catherine continued. He was a construction worker. We had nothing but each other in our dreams. When he died, when Daniel was just 3 years old, I thought my world had ended. Emma listened, understanding the pain in Catherine's voice. I worked 3 jobs to support us, Catherine said. Cleaned houses, waited tables, whatever I could find. When I met Richard, I was cleaning his office building. He was kind to me, took an interest in my life. I fell in love with him, but I also fell in love with the security he offered, the chance to give Daniel a better life. That's understandable, Emma said. Catherine stopped walking and turned to face Emma. But somewhere along the way, I forgot something important. I forgot that money doesn't define worth, that success isn't just about bank accounts and properties. I let Richard's expectations become more important than Daniel's dreams. I failed my son. You haven't failed him, Emma said firmly. He loves you very much. He talks about you all the time. He also talks about you, Catherine said with a small smile. Emma, I need you to know something. I see how my son looks at you. I see how he is when he talks about you. He's different with you, more himself. Emma felt tears pricking her eyes. Don't let anyone, including Daniel himself, make you feel like you're not good enough, Catherine continued. I've lived in both worlds, Emma. I've been poor and I've been rich. And I can tell you that character, kindness, integrity, those things are far more rare and valuable than money. You have those things. Never forget that. They walked back to the house, and Emma felt a connection to this woman who had walked a path similar to her mother's, who understood what it meant to struggle and to sacrifice. When it was time to leave, Catherine hugged Emma tightly. Thank you for coming. And Emma, stand your ground. With Richard, with Daniel, with everyone. You have just as much right to be in my son's life as anyone else. In the car, Daniel reached over and took Emma's hand. My mom really liked you. I really like her too, Emma said. She's special. She is. Daniel agreed. She told me something before we left. She said you remind her of herself at your age, that she sees the same strength in you that got her through the hard times. Emma squeezed his hand, moved beyond words. But their peace was short-lived. The following week, Richard Crawford returned from his business trip and learned about Emma's visit to the house. He was not pleased. Daniel's phone rang while he and Emma were having coffee. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. I have to take this, he said, stepping outside. Through the window, Emma watched as Daniel's posture became increasingly tense. When he came back inside, his face was pale. What happened? Emma asked. My stepfather wants to meet you, Daniel said tightly. Okay, Emma said slowly. When? Now. He's expecting us at his office. The drive to Crawford Properties headquarters was silent. Daniel's jaw was clenched, and Emma could feel his anger radiating off him in waves. Richard Crawford's office was on the top floor, all glass and steel, and commanding views of the city. When they entered, he was standing by the window, his back to them. He turned slowly, his eyes assessing Emma from head to toe. So you're Emma, he said. His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. Yes, sir, Emma replied, keeping her voice steady despite her nervousness. Sit down, both of you. They sat in the leather chairs facing his massive desk. Richard moved behind it, settling into his chair with the air of someone used to being in control. Emma, I'll get straight to the point, Richard said. I've had you looked into. I know about your mother, your job, your financial situation. I know everything. Emma felt her cheeks burn, but she met his gaze steadily. I understand that you and Daniel have been spending time together, Richard continued. And while I'm sure you're a perfectly nice young woman, I think we both know this relationship isn't practical. Richard, Daniel said, his voice tight with anger. Let me finish, Richard said sharply. Emma, you seem like an intelligent girl, so I'm sure you can see that you and Daniel come from very different worlds. Eventually, those differences will create problems. It's not personal. It's just reality. Emma took a deep breath. She thought about running out of the office, never looking back. But then she thought about her mother, about Catherine, about all the women who had been underestimated and dismissed. Mr. Crawford, she said, her voice calm and clear. You're right. Daniel and I do come from different worlds. I grew up poor. My mother cleaned houses for a living. I work at a dry cleaner's and go to community college. I have $4 in my purse right now. That's my reality. Richard leaned back, clearly expecting her to continue by agreeing with him. But with all due respect, sir, Emma continued, those differences don't define who I am or what I'm worth. My mother taught me that dignity isn't something you buy. It's something you carry with you, regardless of your circumstances. She cleaned the homes of wealthy people, but she never felt less than them. She knew her value. That's very touching, Richard said, his tone condescending. But it doesn't change the facts. Daniel has responsibilities, expectations. Daniel has dreams, Emma interrupted. He wants to study architecture. He wants to design buildings that serve communities, not just profit margins. Those are good dreams, Mr. Crawford. Noble dreams. Richard's eyes narrowed. He's been talking to you about this. He has, Emma confirmed, and I've encouraged him to pursue what makes him happy. Is that so wrong? You don't understand the complexities of our family's business, Richard said dismissively. You're right, I don't, Emma agreed. But I understand something about family that maybe you don't. Families should support each other's dreams, not crush them. My mother worked herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities. She didn't do that so I could live her dream. She did it so I could live mine. Richard stood up, clearly done with the conversation. Emma, I'm going to be frank with you. I can make your life very difficult if you continue this relationship with my stepson. I have influence in this city. I can make sure you never get a job at any accounting firm. Never. That's enough, Daniel said, standing up so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Don't you dare threaten her. I'm not threatening, Richard said coldly. I'm stating facts. She needs to understand what's at stake here. What's at stake is my happiness, Daniel said, his voice shaking with anger. And my future, not the company's future. Not your legacy. Mine. Daniel, don't be naive, Richard began. I'm not naive, Daniel interrupted. I've been thinking a lot about what Emma said, about living my own life, about making my own choices. And I've decided something. I'm going to study architecture, with or without your blessing. Richard's face reddened. If you pursue this foolishness, you can forget about your position in the company. Fine, Daniel said simply. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Richard stared at his stepson, clearly not expecting this response. Fine, Richard repeated. Yes, fine, Daniel said. I don't want to spend my life doing work I don't care about, surrounded by people who measure worth by bank accounts. I want to do something meaningful. And if that means giving up my inheritance or my position, or whatever else, then fine. You're throwing away your future for this girl? Richard demanded, gesturing at Emma. No, Daniel said firmly. I'm claiming my future. And Emma has nothing to do with that decision. She's just the first person who's been brave enough to ask me what I really want. Emma stood up beside Daniel. Mr. Crawford, I don't want Daniel's money or position or anything else from your family. I just want him to be happy. And if that makes me unsuitable in your eyes, then I guess I'm unsuitable. She turned to Daniel. Can we go now? Daniel nodded, taking her hand. As they walked toward the door, Richard called out, Daniel, if you walk out that door, don't expect me to support this decision. Daniel paused, his hand on the doorknob. I don't expect anything from you, Richard. I never have. They left, and Emma could feel Daniel trembling as they walked to the elevator. Once inside, with the doors closed, he leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. I can't believe I just did that, he said. Are you okay? Emma asked, concerned. I'm terrified, Daniel admitted, but I'm also relieved. I've been living for his approval my whole life. Maybe it's time I live on my own. When they reached the parking garage, Daniel stopped and turned to Emma. I need you to know something. What I said up there about studying architecture, that wasn't about you. I mean, you inspire me to think about it differently, but the decision is mine. I don't want you to feel responsible. I don't, Emma said, but I'm proud of you. That took real courage. Daniel laughed, a slightly shaky sound. I don't feel very courageous right now. I feel like I just jumped off a cliff. Maybe that's what courage is, Emma suggested. Jumping even when you're scared. They drove to Emma's apartment, and when they pulled up outside, Daniel turned off the engine but didn't move to get out. Emma, I need to tell you something, he said. I'm falling for you. Maybe I've already fallen. And I know it's complicated and messy, and we've only known each other a few weeks, but I can't help it. You make me want to be better, braver. You make me feel like I can actually be myself. Emma felt her heart swelling. I'm falling for you too, she admitted. And it terrifies me, because I look at you and I see someone with so much potential, so much to offer the world. And I'm afraid I'll hold you back somehow. You could never hold me back, Daniel said firmly. Emma, you push me forward. You challenge me to be honest with myself. That's not holding me back. That's the opposite. They sat in the car, hands clasped, both knowing that life was about to get much more complicated, but both willing to face it together. The next few weeks were difficult. Richard refused to speak to Daniel, and there was tension at family dinners. But Catherine stood by her son, and that made all the difference. Daniel enrolled in an architecture program at the university, taking night classes, so he could still work part-time at the company. He told Emma he needed to prove to himself that he could do this on his own merits, not because of his family's name or money. Emma continued working at the dry cleaners and attending her own classes. She and Daniel would study together sometimes, sitting side by side in the library, working on their respective assignments. One evening, About 2 months after the confrontation with Richard, Daniel picked Emma up with an excited expression on his face. "I have something to show you," he said. He drove them to an empty lot in a neighborhood Emma recognized. It was the area where she had grown up, where her mother had rented their small apartment. "What are we doing here?" Emma asked. Daniel pulled out a folder from the back seat. "This is my first real project for architecture class. We had to design a community center for an underserved neighborhood. I chose this one." He opened the folder and showed Emma the drawings. They were beautiful, showing a building that was both functional and inspiring. There were spaces for after-school programs, adult education classes, a community kitchen, and a small health clinic. "Daniel, this is incredible," Emma breathed. "I was thinking about your mom," Daniel explained, "about all the people like her who work so hard, but don't always have access to resources that could help them. This building would be a place where people could learn new skills, get support, build community." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. She would have loved this. "I want to build it," Daniel said. "For real, I mean, not just as a class project. I've been talking to some investors, people outside of Richard's circle who are interested in community development. They think it's viable. But that would take so much money," Emma said. "I have a trust fund for my biological father," Daniel explained. "It's mine, separate from Richard's money. I've never touched it. I always thought I'd save it for something important. I think this qualifies." Emma threw her arms around him, overwhelmed by his generosity and vision. "You're going to change lives," she whispered. "We're going to change lives," Daniel corrected. "I want you to be part of this, Emma. I need your perspective, your understanding of what this community actually needs." Over the following months, Daniel worked tirelessly on the community center project. Emma helped where she could, connecting him with people from the neighborhood, helping him understand the real needs of working families. Richard continued to keep his distance, but Catherine became increasingly involved in the project. She reconnected with her own roots, remembering what it had been like to struggle and dream. One day, Catherine pulled Emma aside. "I need to tell you something. I talked to Richard last night. Really talked to him. For the first time in a long time." "How did it go?" Emma asked. "I told him I was proud of Daniel, that he was building something meaningful, something that would outlast any property deal or business acquisition. I told him that if he couldn't see the value in that, then he didn't really understand success at all." "What did he say?" Catherine smiled. "He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked me to show him Daniel's plans for the community center. He studied them for an hour, Emma. He didn't say much, but I could see him thinking. 2 weeks later, Daniel received a call from his stepfather's office. Richard wanted to meet with him. Daniel asked Emma to come with him, and she agreed, though she was nervous about facing Richard again. This time, when they entered Richard's office, he wasn't standing by the window. He was sitting at his desk, and Daniel's architectural drawings were spread out in front of him. "Sit down," Richard said, his tone less harsh than before. They sat, and Richard studied the drawings for another moment before looking up. "Your mother showed me these," he said to Daniel. "They're impressive, well thought out, practical but also inspirational." "Thank you," Daniel said cautiously. "I've also been looking into your investors," Richard continued. "They're solid. This project could actually work." Daniel waited, unsure where this was going. "I'd like to help," Richard said finally. "Not take over, not control it, but contribute. Crawford Properties has experience with construction, with permits, with navigating city bureaucracy. Let me put those resources at your disposal." Daniel was stunned. "I don't understand." Richard sighed, and for the first time, Emma saw something other than cold authority in his face. She saw uncertainty, maybe even regret. "I've been thinking about what Catherine said," Richard admitted, "about success and legacy. I built an empire, Daniel. I'm proud of that. But you're building something else. Something that will actually help people. That's a different kind of legacy. Maybe a better one." He looked at Emma. "And you, Miss Reed, I owe you an apology. I underestimated you. I thought you were just another young woman looking for a wealthy husband. But you're not. You genuinely care about my stepson. You push him to be better. That's rare." Emma nodded, accepting the apology without gloating. So, Richard said, looking between them, "Can we start over? All of us." Daniel glanced at Emma, who gave a small nod. "We can try," Daniel said. Over the next year, the community center became a reality. Daniel worked with contractors and architects, learning and growing with each challenge. Emma finished her degree and got a job at a small accounting firm that specialized in helping nonprofits and community organizations. The center opened on a sunny Saturday morning. Hundreds of people from the neighborhood came to see it, to explore the bright spaces and new opportunities it represented. Emma stood at the entrance, watching families stream in. She thought about her mother, about all the dreams she had held for her daughter. This center wouldn't have saved her mother's life, but it might have made it easier, and it would make life easier for so many others. Daniel came up beside her, slipping his hand into hers. "What are you thinking about?" "My mom," Emma said, wishing she could see this. "I think she can," Daniel said softly, "and I think she's proud of you." Catherine joined them, her eyes bright with tears. "This is beautiful, Daniel. Your father would be so proud." Even Richard had come, standing slightly apart, but watching with what might have been approval on his face. As the day wore on, Emma helped lead tours of the center, explaining the different programs that would be offered. She talked to single mothers who reminded her of her own mom, to young people looking for job training, to elderly residents excited about the health clinic. That evening, after everyone had left and the center was quiet, Daniel and Emma sat on the front steps, exhausted but happy. "We did it," Daniel said, shaking his head in wonder. "We actually did it." "You did it," Emma corrected. "This was your vision." "Our vision," Daniel said. "Emma, none of this would have happened without you. You gave me the courage to stand up to Richard, to pursue what I really wanted. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave me something too, you know." "What's that?" "You showed me that kindness and privilege aren't mutually exclusive, that having money doesn't make someone bad, just like not having money doesn't make someone good. You showed me that what matters is what you do with what you have." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. "Emma," Daniel said suddenly, "I have something I want to ask you." He shifted to face her, and Emma's heart began to race as she saw him pull a small box from his pocket. "I know we haven't known each other that long," Daniel said, "and I know our journey has been unconventional, but I also know that I love you. I love your strength, your wisdom, your kindness. I love how you challenge me and support me. I love who I am when I'm with you." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. "Emma Reed, will you marry me?" Emma felt tears streaming down her face. She thought about that first night in the restaurant, when she had only $4 and was waiting for a date who would never show up. She thought about how one act of kindness from a stranger had changed everything. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Daniel slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. "I can't believe this is real," Emma said. "Sometimes I feel like I'm gonna wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It's real," Daniel assured her. "All of it. The good and the hard and everything in between. And we're going to keep building on it together." They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the community center. Catherine helped Emma choose a simple but elegant dress. Rachel was her maid of honor, crying happy tears throughout the ceremony. Richard walked Daniel down the aisle, and Emma could see the emotion on both their faces. They had rebuilt their relationship slowly, carefully, but genuinely. As Emma stood at the altar, looking at Daniel's face full of love and promise, she thought about all the twists and turns that had brought them to this moment. A blind date that never happened, a stranger's kindness, $4 in her purse, and a heart full of hope. Her mother had been right. Circumstances don't define your worth. Character does. Kindness does. Love does. And sometimes, when you least expect it, a single moment of connection can change your entire life. Years later, Emma would look back on that night in the restaurant as the beginning of everything. She and Daniel would go on to build 3 more community centers in underserved neighborhoods. Emma would start her own accounting firm, specializing in helping small businesses and nonprofits. They would have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and they would teach them the lessons their mothers had taught them about kindness and dignity and the importance of seeing people, really seeing them regardless of their circumstances. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, Emma would sit on the porch of their modest home, holding Daniel's hand, and remember the girl she had been, the girl with $4 and big dreams, the girl who thought she didn't belong in fancy restaurants or in the life of someone like Daniel Crawford. That girl had been wrong. She had belonged everywhere she chose to be, because she carried her worth inside her, just like her mother had always said. The community center still stood, serving hundreds of families each year, and above the entrance, on a brass plaque, were words that Emma had chosen, in memory of Margaret Reed, who taught us that kindness costs nothing and means everything. Daniel would squeeze her hand and smile, and Emma would feel grateful for every single moment that had led her to this life, the struggles and the triumphs, the fear and the courage, the $4 that seemed like so little but had been the beginning of so much. Because sometimes the most important journeys begin with the smallest steps. Sometimes the most valuable things can't be bought or sold. And sometimes love finds us exactly when we need it most, in the most unexpected places. Emma's story was proof that magic could happen in ordinary moments. That dignity wasn't about money, but about how you carried yourself through the world. That kindness, real kindness, could change everything. And as she sat there, with the man she loved beside her and the life they had built together surrounding her, Emma knew that her mother would be proud, not because of the money or the success or the beautiful family, but because Emma had stayed true to herself through it all, because she had remained kind even when the world wasn't always kind to her, because she had believed in love and hope and possibility, even when she only had $4 to her name. That belief, that hope, that kindness, those are the things that mattered. Those were the things that lasted. Those were the things that changed the world, one person at a time, one moment at a time, one act of compassion at a time. And it all started with a girl, a fancy restaurant, and a stranger who chose to see her worth. If Emma's story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe for more uplifting tales of hope and human kindness. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced an unexpected act of kindness that changed your life? Share your story with us.